Have you ever had a conversation that changed your entire life? Once upon a time, there was a 10-year-old girl whose whole world changed because of one conversation. On this particular day, she ran home from school and she noticed her grandmother on the couch reading a newspaper in a foreign language. When the grandmother was done with the newspaper, she folded it up and tossed it to the side. "We need more newspapers," said the grandmother. The girl noticed a stack of unread, neatly folded newspapers under the coffee table and pointed that out. "Grandma, there are a couple more newspapers under there," she said. Her grandmother shook her head, saying, "No, not those." The girl was confused. Why didn't her grandmother want to read those newspapers? So she persisted again, like any 10-year-old would, saying, "Grandma, what's wrong with those newspapers? Why don't you want to read them?" Her grandmother casually responded by saying, "I can't read that. I never learned the English alphabet." The girl was shocked. How could her grandmother not know the alphabet that she had learned as early as 3 years old? The conversation the two had that day changed that girl's entire life. That girl was me. My grandmother grew up at a time and in a place where child marriage was a normal practice. As a result, education wasn't prioritized as much as managing the home was. And by the time these women were 16 years old, they typically had a few children and the responsibility of a family on their shoulders. When I asked my grandmother what she would have liked to do if she hadn't been married that young, she said that she hadn't thought about it. When I asked her if she tried learning the English alphabet before, she said that while my grandfather had tried teaching her, she wasn't able to grasp it. When I asked if she wanted me to teach her, she promptly responded by saying, "Ye sab mere bas ki baat nahi hai," which in English means all of this is beyond my competence or capabilities. How could something like learning the alphabet be beyond her capabilities? I responded by fighting back, saying that wasn't the case and it was really easy to learn. But I knew that the conversation was over. The stories that you tell yourself can determine the distance that you go. Have you ever stopped to consider what beliefs are holding you back from being your best self and from achieving greatness? What stories are you telling yourself? Now, many of you may know me from my pageant journey, but little do you know, doing a pageant was never on the radar growing up. Hi, my name is Chhavi Verg, and I am Miss New Jersey USA 2017 and was first runner-up at Miss USA 2017. Now, each year, thousands of women compete for the chance of being Miss USA. Now, 51 make it to competition, but in the end, only one walks home as Miss USA. Now, Miss USA then goes on to Miss Universe, which is the biggest beauty pageant in the world. Miss Universe has a massive platform, and becoming Miss Universe can open so many doors in the world of fashion, entertainment, media, advocacy, among many others. Now, if you told little Chubby that one day she would be Miss New Jersey USA and go on to compete at Miss USA, she wouldn't have even believed you. Even if you told me that 5 or 6 years ago, I'd be appalled. My pageant journey fell into my life so unexpectedly, but I'm so grateful that it did. Born in India, I was only 4 years old when my family moved to the United States. And growing up, I frequently struggled with feeling good in my skin. I grew up, as my Indian relatives call, healthy. And by the way, healthy does not mean healthy at all. It means chubby. So I grew up chubby, and my relatives never forgot to remind me of it. In fact, I had one cousin in particular who loved calling me Chhavi Verg as a nickname. Now add to that the issue of colorism. Growing up, I didn't feel my tan skin was beautiful, and I was often compared to my mom, who has a lighter complexion than I do. And what high school experience is complete without the few years of acne and braces that plague most 14 to 18-year-olds? While I was quite confident in other areas of my life, like dance and academics, I never truly felt good in my skin. Now, whether you call it fate, luck, or sheer coincidence, things began to shift during my junior year of high school. I got the opportunity to walk in my very first fashion show and fell in love with it instantly. I started walking in more shows, and one day, when I saw an advertisement for Miss New Jersey Teen USA in my high school newspaper, I decided to take the opportunity and compete, thinking that it wouldn't be much different from the fashion shows that I had already began walking in. So on finals night of the Miss New Jersey Teen USA competition, when I found myself being called as fourth runner-up, I couldn't believe it. I had never imagined I could do something like this. But advancing to that point in my very first pageant made me hopeful that if I worked a little harder, maybe there was even a possibility that I win this someday. So the following year, I competed again, but this time at the Miss New Jersey USA competition, as I had placed out of the teen division. I thought that if I worked a little harder, had a more beautiful gown, cuter interview dress, nicer swimsuit, I would be able to win. So pageant weekend came, and as I stood in line waiting to be interviewed, I started conversing with one of my fellow contestants. We'll call her Elle for short. Elle was super sweet, and she even gave me some tips before I went in to meet with the judges for an interview. Pageant weekend flew, and I found myself on finals night, standing on stage with 100 other women, all holding their breath, waiting to hear their name being called into the top final contestants. I prayed, please say Chhavi, repeatedly in my head. The words never came. I walked off stage as a non-finalist and just kept repeating thoughts in my head. Where did I go wrong? What more could I have done? Kya ye mere bas ki baat hai? Is this something that I'm even capable of? As I started doubting myself, I could feel tears forming in my eyes. I felt two arms embrace me, and I looked up to see Elle. I broke down in tears. Elle, what did I do wrong? Why didn't I win? Am I not good enough? She looked at me in the eyes, and she said, Chhavi, I want you to promise me that you are going to compete again. You have it. You are going to be Miss USA and Miss Universe one day. I got chills. I have chills right now just thinking about how confidently she said that. It meant so much to me to have someone believe in me like that, especially a fellow competitor. I couldn't even envision myself as Miss USA, and here she was saying it as if it were already a fact. Her words of encouragement gave me the motivation I needed to compete again, and my preparation began the very next day. I began preparing for the Miss New Jersey USA 2017 competition. Now, there are three aspects to the competition: swimsuit, evening gown, and interview. Interview is based mostly on personality, so there wasn't much more I could do there than be my true, authentic self. I knew my biggest challenge would be the onstage portion of competition. Now, at that point, in the 19 years I had been alive, I had never worn a bikini. And I never really felt confident enough to wear one either. But I noticed that all the girls that had placed into the semifinals and the girl that won all had incredibly toned abs and were owning every minute on that stage. I knew for me to be able to compete in the same way, I needed to hit the gym. The issue was, prior to this moment, I had never really done much at the gym. I usually did some light weights and some cardio, but I never used the machines, and I thought that lifting weights would make me look manly, which is the last thing I wanted. Fortunately, I ended up finding a coach who showed me otherwise, and she showed me exactly how my previously held beliefs about strength training, dieting, and the limits of my body were wrong. As I started lifting weights and seeing my strength, my confidence began to improve and increase. I loved working out. It was a form of self-care for me. And eventually my focus shifted and the body just came as a bonus. In fact, I even ended up getting my personal training certification later that year. Imagine telling 10-year-old Chhavi that one. Now, the second part of the onstage portion that really intimidated me was walking in heels. Standing at 5'9", I never felt the need to wear heels taller than 2 inches before. But walking in my evening gown in those tiny little heels was pretty hard. So upon Al's suggestion, I invested in some 6-inch pageant heels. Now, the day I got them, I tried them on, and I took them right off because I could barely stand in these shoes. How was I supposed to walk in them? I remember my first time attempting to walk in these shoes. And I say attempting because I probably did more falling that day than actually walking. I would get about 2 to 3 steps in, lose my balance, and stumble. Then I tried holding onto the walls for support, taking some more steps. I would fall once again. And after about 15 to 20 minutes of falling, I decided that I would call it quits. This was impossible. But I knew I couldn't give up. So I decided to go to watch Miss USA and Miss Universe videos of the past to see what the contestants did there, to see how they were walking and hopefully learn something from them. As I watched these videos of them walking, I tried to envision myself giving a performance like that. I even went as far as envisioning myself walking on that stage, being Miss New Jersey USA, and how that would feel to be on stage, hear my name being called, feel the crown being placed on my head. And that gave me the motivation I needed to try walking in those heels again. Hundreds of falls and many, many, many bruises later, I was finally able to walk in these shoes. By the time pageant weekend came around, I had done so many things I never believed I could do. I had grown so confident in who I was as a person. I knew that whether I won the title or not, I would be walking home a winner. So pageant weekend came, and during the interview, I shared my entire journey with the judges. During the swimsuit round, I was able to walk on stage and cherish every moment because I had truly fallen in love with my body. And during evening gown, all the falls paid off, and I was able to walk in those shoes without worrying about falling again. I found myself on finals night holding the hands of just one other contestant on center stage. The entire room was dark. There were lights shining brightly in my eyes, and it was so quiet. They could hear a pin drop. My heart was racing in my chest, and I took a deep breath as the announcer's voice filled my ears. Chhavi Verg is Miss New Jersey USA 2017. And my hands shot right up to my face, covering them in disbelief. I couldn't believe I won. This was really happening. I was so thrilled, and I felt the crown being placed on my head exactly as I had envisioned it that entire year. My dream had come true. And then she lived happily ever after, right? Wrong. You know, many people think that when you get your victory, that's your happy ending. But really, that's just the beginning. In fact, the following day, I woke up to many comments online talking about how there were other beautiful, more deserving girls that should have won, and I shouldn't have. As the year progressed, the comments got worse. And in fact, I actually used that as fuel to try to work harder and to prove to other people that I deserve to be here. I deserve this crown. I would get well-versed on current affairs so that I could confidently deliver my onstage answer at Miss USA. I went to the gym twice a day to get even more toned. And forget walking in the pageant heels, I started practicing different spins and turns to really take my performance to the next level. Still, the comments continued, and there was no mercy that was shown. There was no hesitation in people comparing the looks, the features, the bodies of my fellow Miss USA contestants. Now, I wish I could say that it was, I didn't give in to these comments or that I stayed strong, but the fact of the matter is they did get to me from time to time. I had my moments of self-doubt, moments that made me question if I deserved to be here. There's a saying in Hindi, kuch to log kahenge, which in English means people will say something or the other. Now, for most of my life up to that point, the words of others had an impact over what I thought I could achieve, who I thought I was. Winning the pageant showed me otherwise. It gave me victory over the stories I had been telling myself and what I thought was possible. I knew that in order to succeed, I needed to tune out everyone. Racehorses typically have blinders put on the sides of their head so that they can focus on their path and not get distracted by the other horses that are racing them. Similarly, I put on my invisible blinders as well as earplugs in my ears to just tune out the noise, to focus on my path and my journey ahead. I found myself on May 14th, 2017, holding the hands of one of my fellow contestants yet again. The room was completely dark, totally silent, but I knew there were about 3 million pairs of eyes watching me. But it's weird because I felt strangely calm despite of that. Again, I took a deep breath, waiting to hear what the announcer would say. Miss USA 2017 is... I waited for the words that I longed to hear that entire journey. The words that my friend Elle had so confidently said the day I walked off as a non-finalist from the Miss New Jersey USA stage. The words that would challenge everything that was considered possible for my grandmother and all the women in my family before her. The words I so desperately longed to hear never came. I ended up placing as first runner-up, but for the longest time, I thought myself a failure for not being called Miss USA. And it was only in the aftermath that I realized the impact that this experience had on my life, as well as on the lives of other people. I later found out that my story had inspired a relative in India to go after her dream of becoming an actress. And today, as a wife and as a mother, she continues to challenge what people consider possible for women by following her dream. Another girl told me that she was inspired by my journey to compete at a pageant in her state, and she ended up winning that title. It was remarkable. My story, by me challenging the limiting beliefs I had, I was able to inspire others to go after their dreams. It made me realize that truly the stories we have within our heads are created by us. The only limits that exist are the ones that we create. Now we have the opportunity of breaking free of these beliefs by finding comfort in discomfort, and by doing so despite the fear of falling. But if you do fall, you have two options. You can choose to stay down, or you can challenge yourself to get back on your feet and keep walking. So let me ask you, which of these are you going to choose?